Hello and welcome to this Women's Informal Network seminar on coming back from burnout with Rebecca Hartnell. My name is Maria Magdalena Heinrich and I am one of the coordinators of the Women's Informal Network. And today I would also like to welcome members of the OECD, if they are also here with us today, of their Women's Network. So just quickly to introduce some of you who are not familiar maybe with the network, what it is. The Women's Informal Network, also called WIN, is a professional network for women in the international development sector. And WIN has grown very quickly since 8 March 2016, from 8 to over 800 members globally, from 88 different UN agencies, as well as some international financial institutions, NGOs, governments, and universities. We have 5 chapters in Rome, New York, Geneva, Vienna, and Nairobi. And the purpose of the network is to promote inspiring women's leadership and to strengthen women's managerial abilities. So the network does this by exchanging advice on career development, sharing best practices in work-life balance, providing informal mentoring and coaching. We have a mentoring program. Organizing networking opportunities, to speak up about your ask. What is it that you would like to achieve? Or if someone like here would like to change city, for example, then it's good to give and receive advice. Inviting motivational speakers or also stakeholders to discuss relevant topics, and also serving as focus groups on policy issues that are relevant within our institutions. So for this year, Chitra and I would like our members to take up more an active role in not only proposing topics or speakers, but also facilitating these meetings. And so this event, which is part of our series called Career and Life Development Workshops, that also includes the mentoring and coaching initiatives, has been brought to us by our long-standing member, Sheila O'Brien. Thanks, Sheila, really, thank you so much. And with this, I would like to hand over to you, Sheila, please.
Okay, thank you. It's such an honor to kickstart this session with a very good friend of mine, Rebecca. We had a false start the last time, but we're all here now. So let me give you a brief introduction of Rebecca before I leave it to her to take it away. So Rebecca wears about 3 hats. She's a coach, a clinical supervisor, and a shamanic practitioner. And she brings 30 years of experience working in professional development of a wide variety of industry sectors. She's the founder of 2 businesses. The first is Damon Career Coach, which she's been running and managing for the last decade. And that focuses primarily on coaching women, where Rebecca enables them to recover from burnout, step into their power, and choose to design their careers in the way that works for them. And the second business that she runs was in 2021, where Rebecca became CEO of the Divine Feminine. And that is about supporting individuals and organizations in the realignment of their values and purpose so that they can work and trade wisely. And I can assure you that Rebecca is a fierce warrior standing on behalf of the Divine Feminine, which I know that she's also writing a book on that. So without further ado, let me warmly welcome Rebecca for this session. Rebecca, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for a lovely, lovely introduction. And can you see me? Am I going to come up on the screen? Yes, brilliant. All right. Thank you so much for being here. I am running 2 companies. That seems insane, but it's an awful lot of fun. And what I wanted to say is this session is all about burnout. So that does mean that if that's what you're heading for, you've shown up in the right place. I am sorry I couldn't join you last month, and I'm just really delighted that I can be with you here this time, because I've got lots of things that I'd really like to share with you. So come with me, all right? So what we will be covering in our time together, I'm just going to screen share my slides. Because they're beautiful. They're much better than the talk, the slides. Right. So can you all see that? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. So this is coming back from burnout. And what we will be covering today, if I can move that out of the way. Anyway, the subjects we will be covering are pleasure, consent. We will be working with the power of celebration. We will be working with rewarding ourselves. And also, this is quite radical, we will be working with the benefits of failure. So that's a joy. There's always a joy for me. I think we'll learn a lot. What I'd also like to say is thank you. Thank you for being here, because time is probably the most valuable thing that we've got these days. We're all trying to do too many things all of the time, and everybody's asking things of us. So thank you for choosing it to spend it with me. I will endeavour to send you away with something of value. But also congratulations to all of us, really, for showing up to address our personal development and our CPD, because that's what nourishes us as well. It's another way of coming back from burnout. Not too much, but showing up and being present is a really commitment to you here today. So why would you listen to me? Well, you've had a little bit of a debrief from Sheila there. So I put 25 years worth of professional organisation here. I work within a lot of different sectors, and I've got a really good sense of the business landscape in the UK and internationally now, especially as my business has opened up. A decade of career coaching, founder of 2 businesses and a clinical supervisor and a shamanic practitioner, but that bit probably frightens you. So we'll just stay away from that bit for now. The other reason you would listen to me, hopefully, is because in the last 2 years, I have taken myself, beautifully so, right the way to burnout. With this running 2 businesses, with the Divine Feminine at work, I ended up with a massive vision. And in those circumstances, what did I do? I had my internalized capitalist, I got my internalized patriarchy, and I picked it all up and I put it into this lovely business vision of mine. Eventually I had to pay another coach quite a large whack of money to come and tell me that what I was trying to do was not possible. Firstly, that was a real disappointment. And secondly, it was a huge relief. It was like, thank God somebody's given me permission not to do this ridiculous thing. So what I've learned through this is that I can get myself back from burnout. So I brought in all sorts of tools with me. And I've also learned that working with the Divine Feminine and integrating that into my life, my business, my leadership, is what sustains me. So that's how I know this stuff worked. I had to live this stuff to learn it. So if I can prevent you lot having to live it, just so you get this information, then I'm doing my job. So there's a gratitude here. This isn't anything that I'm charging for. I'm showing up because I've got this huge opportunity here to be with you. But if you find that you take value from it, I would love it if that you would donate to Tree Sisters. Now, I'll make sure that you get all this paperwork as a result of this. Why Tree Sisters? Because they are, you may well be aware of them or you may not, they're doing an amazing amount of reforestation. They fundraise and they initiate, and masses of trees are being planted. And if anything is more divine feminine, there isn't anything more divine feminine than Mother Earth, and the trees are the lungs of Mother Earth. So if you wanted to donate, I just thought I would bring that in. Okay, so being really clear, this isn't a sales pitch. So there on that slide is all the things that I do. I run career coaching programs, I run one-to-one coaching, I enable the purposeful alignment of organizations, and I support business founders in both startup and now burnout. What's my purpose for saying that? I suppose the point of saying that is we are all time poor. So if you find, because of life, that you cannot make it quite to the end of this session, then I won't be offended. All right, we all have things to do. However, it is my absolute hope that we get to take the whole of this journey together, because I think there's a whole heap of information in here that just will be fun and nourishing. And it's time we took care of ourselves. So but if you have to go, I won't take it personally. This is real life. Okay. So this space that we're in, what is it? I'm calling it thought leadership, and I'm calling it cultural change, because we've been stuck in the patriarchy for quite a long time now, really. So this is about how wielding the divine feminine at work leads to wise decision making in leadership, life, and business. And let that land. You know, we've been rushing all the time, rushing, deliver. And this is about redesigning things a new way. And I will tell you more about that in a minute. And what is the divine feminine? Just bear with me while I read this to you, because I think it's really profound. It's yin and it's receiving, but it's also a multitude of other things. So this feminine energy, it is not just the daydreaming of children or the wishful thinking of elderly women. This feminine energy is the beginning of life. It is the space that existed in the cosmos before masculine energy could achieve anything. It is the womb space that has to exist before life can grow. It is the dreaming space that has to exist before the ideas and inspiration can fill it, before anything can be made manifest in the physical realm at all. There can be nothing, no creation or idea, no actions or manifestations at all, without there first being the feminine container that holds and births it all. This is the core of life. Let's stop pretending it's a fanciful thing at the edges. There is no life without the feminine. So let us walk out into the world, our walk, our work, our societies and our families, giving rightful and respectful weight to these divine feminine traits of ours. That's big, right? That was said to me by my shamanic practitioner. She's my supervisor. And it just feels really big. There isn't anything until this feminine energy. So yeah, let that land in your body. So I guess what I'm showing up here to do for my mission, not just in this talk, but in life, is to challenge the norms of the patriarchy. We've been living in it for years. Is to empower people to reclaim them sovereign selves. We have so much wisdom inside. And it's about bringing balance in all these areas of life. And so that's leadership and life and business. So my ambition here, I don't know if I can move those. I'm ever sorry, I'm going to have to read that to you. So my ambition is that we will be bringing the divine feminine back into sacred union with the divine masculine. And that this is foresight. So what we've had is 700 years of working in the masculine exclusively, and it's not doing us any good, and it's not doing the planet any good. And if I can level up the divine feminine and bring it back into balance, this isn't about manslaying, this isn't about masculine energy being bad, it's about sacred union, and then we can restore balance to the planet. And this is hindsight. I mean, I don't know about you, I learn in hindsight. So I have to generally bang my head against a wall before I realize that it hurt and try not to do it again in another iteration. So I tend to learn by the painful way. But this is hindsight. I'm bringing off a real foresight to this. I'm picking up age-old wisdom from ancient chapters, wisdom that's been left behind, wisdom that's been forgotten, or it's even been deliberately programmed out of us for centuries. I'm bringing it as foresight to solutions to problems we face regarding our well-being, our careers, our business landscapes, our communities, and ultimately the well-being of our planet, which is our home. Sheila rightly asked, well, how come you get foresight? Which is a really good question. What I did was I wrote 115,000 words of book. It needs editing. And this is how the information came out. So I'm a kind of conduit. That's the only reason. But the reality is I think we have this wisdom all along. We've just been severed from it, and we deserve to reclaim it. So, next screen. There we go. So I've asked for more than the usual 90 minutes for this session, and that's not just greed. There's a reason behind that. What I wanted to do was hold space for us to have the conversations, because presentations are always transmit and receive, or quite often they're transmit and receive. And I'm up for holding space for collaboration. And I think that's particularly important for women. I think we've been divided and ruled for a long time. And if you wanted to know more about that, go and Google the witch wound. You know, it's really got in the way of us. It's made us competitive. It's made us put each other down. And actually, if we can really, really work together, we are certainly more than the sum of our parts. And I really want to encourage that. So anything that you want to share, I'm going to have to share. Can you get to chat, Sheila? Can I just, from where you are? Do you need me to do that?
Yes, no, I can see the chat, but
You
there's
can do
nothing
that, right?
there at the
Lovely.
moment.
So Sheila's taking care of the chat, and that's fabulous because I don't think I could manage these multiple things. But if you've got a comment that you want to make, if you want to contribute, then I'd really like to make space for that so that we've got time to really feel into this, because this is our crucible and this is our resource. Actually, we've got to stop being played and we've got to play together. So yeah, thank you, Sheila. If you're willing to pick up those things and notice if anything's brought in, then just let me know. That would be great, because I'd really welcome it. If it feels relevant, then please bring it in. The other side is I would like to welcome the dark side. So what do I mean by the dark side? I mean that we've all had lives where we've had bruises, learnings, injuries, wounds. We've all had our struggles, especially in the last couple of years. So I don't want this talk doesn't need to be all pretty, just bring your whole selves. You are really, really welcome, all of you. I've had my bruises in this time. I'll share some of mine. You are really welcome to share your learning too, because one of the things I've noticed through shamanism is if I bring something into the room in the community healings, it touches everybody. So it's a generosity to share it. And I think it also breaks down some of those boundaries between us as human beings, and we need to be doing that right now. The other thing is I recognise that not everybody wants to bring their emotional process to a public space. So I'm also really happy for you to book yourself into my diary. Things will rise in this time. If anything rises that you want to talk me through, the Calendly link is on these slides, and you can just book in a slot. I am busy. When the slots are gone. But if you'd like to debrief anything with me, then it would be a joy, because this is all shared learning, and I think that's really rich. So you can do it publicly, or you can come to me. I'm available. All right. I wanted to share that with you. So, because I'm holding space in this way, I'd like to do a little piece on your agreement. If by going off on a tangent, we go away, by sharing and laughing and being honest and authentic and taking care of ourselves and each other in this space, if we go off piste with my plan, are we all right with that? Because it could be really, really fertile territory. And my plan might not be the plan that's needed. You'll get the slide notes, you'll have them for reference. So you'll get twice the information if we do go off piste. But I'd be really interested, and maybe Sheila, you can pick this up, if you just put a thumbs up if you're willing to go with the flow, because I'd really like to assess how this sits with you, or whether you just want me to tell you the information. But if you're happy to go with the flow, put a thumbs up or a yes in the chat box, and just give us a feel for how the room is, because I think this could be really rich. See your thumbs coming up. Feels like a brave thing to do because we're going off piste, but it might be exactly what's needed. What are you seeing, Sheila? I can't hear you.
Sorry, that unmuting me would be the idea.
Yeah,
so there's one person that's asking, how can they book a slot with you? So perhaps it might be we can forward the Calendly link after this session. I think and that would be the best way.
The Calendly link is also in these slides, so if we can share the slides, then it's all there.
Yeah, that's great.
Brilliant. People want to book in already. I'm already doing my job, and we can have these amazing conversations where we get to redesign life. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So aside from that, are people generally in agreement that they are willing to just hold this exactly as it needs to be?
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
There are a couple of people that are saying they're not sure of the format, so perhaps you might want to address that.
Okay, I can certainly do that. So what we will be doing through this time is I'm going to tell you some information about well, actually, aggressive self-care would be our first bit. So after we've done this aggressive self-care bit, there will be a little phase where we go into rooms together, and you'll get 10 minutes to work with 2 other people to introduce yourself and to work out. Actually, it's coming a bit later. Aggressive self-care, and then we'll do rooms where we work with pleasure. 2 other individuals, and we'll get to harness what's really in there, because pleasure is exactly where we need to be as women as we go forward. Then I'm going to take you a little bit through the cycle of Gestalt in order to illustrate the learning of the divine feminine and where it sits. And then we will see how pleasure is really important for women and where it sits in there. And then Sheila very generously has offered to do a little bit of work with me, so we can surface some of that for you and show you how that actually works. And then after we've done the cycle of Gestalt, we will descend into celebration, and then we will move into the celebrating failure. There will be a couple of meditations, but anything that comes in to take you to places in your brain which will inform your body, which means that then you are empowered. But if there anything comes up in the meantime and anything has to drop out, you'll get the information anyway, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I think we'll be able to cover it in the time. Can I confirm, do we need to be finished by 6:30?
6:30 your time?
Sorry, 7:30. Yes, your time.
7:30. Yeah.
Just confirming that, because we started a little late, so I'm pretty sure we can fit it all in, even if people, or when people do contribute. I would really welcome your contributions, because otherwise it's just me talking.
Yeah.
At you.
And Sally is saying that she's very curious about the celebration of failure.
Lovely, brilliant. It's been a revelation for me. So if I can share that with you and you can take that away too, then I've done my job. Honestly, it's failure's fascinating, and failure is so rich. So looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Sheila.
Yeah.
Lovely. So aggressive self-care. There's just something another supervisor brings to me. I have a clinical supervisor around my practitioner work. And she's 6 foot, so when she brings aggressive self-care to you, then you do it. She's I think it's really interesting that women tend to put themselves last, and I think we need to begin to tip that. And I know we talk about it, but we need to practically begin to tip that balance. So she talks of aggressive self-care, and what I'd like you to do now, I think you probably all brought a pen and paper with you. I'd like you to write down 3 things. Actually, that's not true. I'd like to set you a homework. I'd like you to write the homework inquiry down. I'd like you to write a list of 10 things which are self-care for you. Now, self-care is different for everybody, right? Self-care can be expensive, self-care can be cheap, self-care can be small, self-care can be moments alone. It depends if you're an introvert or an extrovert. It's really, really wide. So I'd like you to take that away as a homework inquiry, that you will write a list of 10 things that are self-care for you. And then maybe your second homework inquiry is that you contract accountability with another woman who's in this room to make sure that you do it. You know, if you need to diary it, do it. You know, really plot out those times and protect yourselves, because if we are available, people will ask of us, and they will ask of us repeatedly. So a list of 10 things, so that you've got a go-to when you're feeling stressed. You don't even have to think what self-care is. And maybe another woman in the room who you connect with, who you can then help hold accountable, and she can hold you accountable too. Because this is about rigorousness, and this is about self-care, and this is about enabling us to be empowered to be the best that we can be out in the world. And the sad truth is, nobody's going to do it for us. So I'm going to leave you with that. So this gig is about coming back from burnout. Has anybody else been really exhausted in this pandemic? Yeah, I have. Has anybody else got an unreasonable boss who demands all sorts of things from them at all sorts of times of the day? I am the boss, by the way. Yes. But generally, we are demanded of by everybody. And there's also a lot of fear around. This pandemic has been really fatiguing. We've been living in fight or flight. We've been living in fight or flight for so long that we don't actually even know what it's like to feel normal. We've forgotten what it's like to feel rested and nourished, because there's an invisible war going on. So this is where the aggressive self-care comes in, is that, you know, we need to tip that balance. So There you go. I was going to tell you, I wasn't going to do transmit and receive. I was not going to tell you what to do today. I've already given you 2 instructions, so I've broken my own rules. Make that list, contract with accountability with another woman in the room, and commit to it. Absolutely commit. Coming back from burnout your way. So if I could tell you that you could come back from burnout without changing your job or your sector or your industry, you'd want to know how to do that right. Do I have your consent? We shall begin. Here we go, into pleasure. So at this point, I would normally take the content into the celebration and reward phase, but given the demographic of the people that I'm working with, I'm bringing pleasure. I'm going to explore pleasure with you and why this is essential for women in order that we can be the best that we can do in our work and our lives and our families. So what I'd like to do first is consent. I think this is really important for women. Consent is important. So I would like you in the chat box, if you agree with what I'm about to say, to again do a thumbs up or a yes. So if you find me asking, do I have your consent at regular intervals during this, what I would like you to do is to let me know that you are in agreement with what I'm suggesting we do next. Because then I know you're on board, and then I know that you want to do what we're doing. So I'm going to try it now. Do we have your consent? Because as you know, consent is really important. So go on, use the chat box. Sheila, keep an eye on it for me. We will see if people are responding to this well.
So Katinka says depends on what.
Be specific. I love it. Yeah.
So, and Sally is wondering for what exactly do you need consent?
Okay.
Marilyn as well. So perhaps you can explain that a bit more.
Great questions. All right, exactly. So each time we come up to a task or each time we come up to a subject matter, I will probably yell, do I have your consent? In which case you can choose. So it will be subject specific. All right. I'm not just asking you to consent to the whole thing. Yeah, it's about you choosing as you go along.
And what if someone says no?
Well, I'll go. That's it. But there's also maybe a conversation to be had there. There might be something that feels unsafe. There might be a need that I can address. So, maybe we can raise it. I'm not close to that because consent is really important to women. So let's hold that really beautifully. How does that sit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't want to override people. This isn't a game. Consent is essential.
Okay.
So annoyingly enough, how do I move that? Somebody tell me how that goes. I can't see my slides. Yay. All right. So Claire Dubois, who runs Tree Sisters, who I mentioned earlier, she came out with a phrase last year when I was working with her, and she said, women are designed for pleasure. Let that land. It's just extraordinary. So if women are designed for pleasure, I think what I really watch is that women 99.99% of the time do exactly the opposite. Okay. In October of 2020, Professor Caroline DaCosta, she's a urologist, she wrote an article in the UK Guardian, and it was entitled "The Sole Function of the Clitoris is Female Orgasm." Furthermore, the quote goes like this: the sole function of the clitoris is female orgasm. Is that why it's ignored by medical science? What? The female orgasm has no scientific value. What does this tell us about society's perception of pleasure? And I think that informs a lot. It's not necessarily about the clitoris, but it is about pleasure. It is about how we live our lives, because when we are pleasure filled, then we're really, really empowered. So if most women are spending 99.9% of their time doing the exact opposite, I think that's really hard on us. And I think you will recognize these next 5 words. Women give all the time. So we give to our careers, we give to our kids, we give to our life partners, we give to our communities, we give and we give and we give and we give. And then we're left simply wondering who's giving anything to us. Sound familiar? So I don't know if anybody wants to share their thoughts around that. Did that land with you? It certainly lands with me, but I'm really interested to know if people feel like, you know, they give all the time. Could you just check the chat box?
So Marilena says, absolutely yes, in capital letters with about 6 exclamation marks. And I think she speaks for all of us. Masvita says, oh yeah, definitely. Katinka says, agree. So I think you have general agreement there.
Brilliant.
And Sally is saying, that's why I burnt out big time. I had a massive crash and that I'm still recovering from.
It takes time to come back from that.
And Erin is saying yes, and yet I still feel like I should be doing more and giving more.
Yes, and that's really familiar too. And I think that's the bit we need to be, you know, we can never give enough, can we? And then we're empty and we're still trying to give more. So, you know, firstly, I'm glad I'm not on my own. Secondly, I'm sorry you're experiencing it too. And thirdly, I'm hoping that this work here will bring ways to address that, because it's really powerful, really powerful. And then people wonder why we're a little bit grumpy, you know. It's just ridiculous. So that's really useful, thank you. So I'm going to come up with a hard truth here. So our responsibility for our pleasure lies solely with us. And that's going to take some work. So what arises when you hear that? Just sit with your body for a little bit. Doesn't matter if you contribute and chat or not, but if our responsibility for pleasure lies solely with us, take a breath into that. How does it feel? I know for me, I didn't kind of want the responsibility. I've got enough on the plate. However, within responsibility lies sovereignty. So we'll give you some tools so that you can use that. So when we do not give pleasure to ourselves, we fail to choose work or relationships or lives that give us pleasure, we fail ourselves. And when we fail ourselves and we've got nothing left to give, we then repeatedly fail others. And then we are in the failure cycle. And it just feels like, as you say, we haven't got any more to give and we are not giving enough. So if women are designed for pleasure, we need to work out what pleasure really looks like for us. Because if pleasure filled is exactly what we need to be before we try to give anything away to others. What does pleasure mean to you as women? So I've done a lot of talking. I'll do more, I promise, but it's time for you to do a little bit of work. If I could show you a different way, would you want to join on the journey? Okay, well, you're about to learn how to do this for yourselves. It's time you did a bit of work. If I have your consent to do this little bit of work, Sheena's going to chuck you into rooms of 3. And the question is, what does pleasure mean to you as women in work, life, and play? Okay, so when you get into the room, introduce yourself quickly, say where you're from, and then I'd like you to freestyle it, take risks, get vulnerable. This is how humans generate strong bonds. It's time to show up together. There is no right or wrong around any of this. It's only what's true to you. All right, so do I have your consent that you're going to go and play with this together for 10 minutes and then come back and tell me how you feel about pleasure in your work, your life, and your playtime?
So we have yes from Marilena, yes from Sonia, yes from Deborah, yes from Laura, yes, yes, yes. It's going very fast. Everybody's saying yes.
Brilliant. All right.
Okay.
Well, brilliant.
So,
off we go then. So the question is,
I'll assign 5 breakout rooms. And how much time does everybody have?
so you've got 10 minutes. And I'd like you to each to introduce yourselves, say where you're from, and then crack on with it and decide, what does pleasure mean to you as women in work, life, and play?
Yes, that's great. And Afshan has just joined. You're very welcome, Afshan. It's absolutely okay. So let's see if I can put you into a room and we'll catch you up.
Wonderful, thank you. Do I join?
You can if you like. So let me see, how does this work? Oh, hang on a second. No, I made a mistake. I've opened them.
Lovely, that'll be me just talking again. Thank you very much for everything that you brought. That was really beautiful. And I think the feedback from that would be to do it as often as possible, to schedule it in, to make sure we're really, really feeding ourselves, because once again, nobody else is going to do it. So there's a story that comes with this from me. So just bear with me while I tell it, and I'm going to put my screen share back on, because that would help, because then you can see the slides. There we go. So there's a story that comes with this. I have an African-American client who we began working 3 years ago. She came from the Netherlands and she's now come to the UK. And for our last session, after 3 years worth of working together, she said, with your agreement, she said, I don't want to pay you in money. I'd like to pay you in a pair of handmade shoes. Now, this isn't as ridiculous as it sounds. She does make shoes. It's part of the things that she does. And so last week, I got to meet my handmade boots, and they are beautiful, and they are bespoke. But as butter-soft and glorious as they are no ordinary boots. These boots contain sigils and personal effects and incantations of power. They arrived with considerable tales of the materials and of the processes used, as well as a deal with the devil at the crossroads at St. Arno's Vale Cemetery. They were also they were gifted with really clear instructions. I am to have a year of pleasure, because if women do not fill themselves up with pleasure first, they have nothing to give. So thus, it is my request that all of us in this space engage with all kinds of pleasure regularly for a year, and just see what difference that makes to our lives. I think it will be profound. And I've got really nice boots, but I'm not going to show you because it'll put me in a ridiculous position. And if this takes scheduling in your diary to ensure that you hold space for yourself, please do it, because nobody's going to do it for us. So our pleasure, this is how we take our power back. When we travel all the way around the cycle that I'm going to show you in a minute, we take all the nourishment that fuels ourselves, and thus we can start the next cycle all nourished, all right, instead of this deliver burnout model that we're all living right now. So, wielding the divine feminine at work leads to wise decision making in businesses, leadership, and life. So with your consent, I'd like to introduce you to the model underpinning the divine feminine and show how this works. Why? Because it will become clear where women's pleasure needs to lie within this cycle, and why this is our empowerment. Do I have your consent?
So just looking in the chat, the consent is rolling in. Yes, yes, yes.
Lovely.
We have
Brilliant.
9 consent and a few hands up, or a few thumbs up. So
good.
That's it.
Great. You're responding beautifully. I just want to sort of keep in dialogue with you, because I can't see you all, but if I know that you're responding, then I feel like I'm in relationship with you, which is the whole point of this. So what we're doing, let's keep having the conversation. So if as I am explaining this model to you, you have any questions, Sheila, thank you very much. If you could keep hold of anything that comes in, then let's make space for them. I might not know the answer, but somebody else in the room might. I mean, this is where the crucible is. This is how we bring our brilliance to what we're doing. So just hold in that space as well. If you've got questions, put them in the chat box and we'll work with there. So what I'm about to introduce to you is not rocket science, right? It won't be anything you haven't heard before. What is radical is that if we start to integrate it really religiously into our lives and our work and our leadership and our businesses, then we could become manageable, we become sustainable. So the radical bit is that I'm bringing old wisdom forward and that we actually need to use it. And this will lead to cultural change. So here's the masculine. Nice and simple, not just missing the masculine. From A to B, it's the action, all right? So it's linear, and it's essential if we're actually going to get anything done. This, however, is the action orientation that we've lived in exclusively for the past 700 years. It's effective, but it's destructive when it's used in isolation. So when you look at the natural world, everything is cyclical. From the day to the night, from the hours that we go through, for the lunar cycle, for women's menstrual cycles, from the seasons of the year, we're always going around cycles. We're not linear. at all. It's only humans that have decided that we're going to work exclusively in a linear way, which is a bit bonkers, really. So here's the cycle around the divine feminine. Now, I'm not quite sure how to make this so you can see it. Can I get that really out of the way? I'm going to put it right across the middle and I'll move it around as we're doing it. So this is the cycle of Gestalt. And we start at sensation. This is the beginning of a new idea or a new learning. And the ambition is that we will go all around this cycle, touching all these places. So sensation, awareness, mobilization, action. This is the masculine bit. Contact, resolution, whatever that is down there, and withdrawal. So that's completion and withdrawal. And also we spend some time in the fertile void. But what we've been doing for 700 years is just spending our time in here. And that's just bonkers. So we go around this on an hourly, minutely basis, from wanting a drink of water to learning a new lesson. We haven't been doing it all. And I will explain why in a minute, why that's happening. But what I'd like to do just temporarily, just briefly, is to explain what some of these mean. So sensation, this is our starting point. This is our piece of discomfort. This is our, it feels off, or something needs to change, or we're not comfortable, or this is our body's wisdom telling us that something needs to be different. And I think what we've been taught is to dismiss that. We've been taught to be really in our heads and to be really rational and to not access this wisdom that we've got. And also we want to get away from this discomfort, this pain. We don't really know what to do with it. So this is also the place of addictions. This is the place of social media, consumerism, that glass of wine or two at the end of the night. This is the place of zoning out so we don't have to experience these sensations in our bodies. The problem is, when we don't experience those sensations, when we don't take this wisdom, we're actually giving our power away. We're buying into other people's games. People are making money out of us, and we are letting go of our own sovereign wisdom. So they're not comfortable, but stick with those sensations. Do not try and make them go away. These are your wisdom, and they are your essential information. So the questions you might ask yourself: what sensations are you feeling? How does your body feel? What are you noticing in your environment? There might be things going on around which kind of don't look right, don't feel right. What are you hearing and feeling? And what can you touch, taste, and smell? So it's all about these, and just sticking with them. It's discomforting, but don't try and make them go away, because there's a process to this. So the next bit we'll move into, what we're trying to do is move from sensation, the discomfort, not making them go away, into awareness. We're trying to surface these feelings in our body into awareness, in which case they become words. Now, Sheila pointed out this is kind of difficult. How do we get from that place into awareness? And I get that. So you've got a pen and paper in front of you. I'd like you to write 3 things down that you think might help you, and you know this, translate what's going on in your body and surface that into a series of words which you can then use. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to sit with that. And then you can share what you've come up with.
Would you please repeat, Rebecca?
Of course. I'd like you to come up with 3 ways which would enable you to understand or find some words around the feelings that go with the sensations in your body. So if you're feeling hot, or you're feeling, you're feeling discomfort in some way, how do you surface that into the words such as fear or anxiety, or how can you access those? How can you translate those for yourself? And I do have some solutions, but it's great if you can generate those things yourself. Does that make sense? So, does anybody have anything they'd like to share? What have you come up with? I'd love to know. If you could let Sheila know, that would be great. And if you're all entirely stuck, we will certainly deal with that, but I think we know this stuff.
So Jessica is saying anxiety, stroke, adrenaline rush, and then in brackets when I'm startled by news, and then headache.
Lovely. So you've got your metrics now. You know what it looks like, and you know how to move that through. You know what it signals for you. Does that make sense? Yeah, because I think we can ignore it. We can ignore our body shouting out at us when actually we go, oh, got a headache, got an adrenaline rush. Okay, I'm anxious. And then when we know what it's called, we can do stuff. So how did you translate that?
Meaning how I knew it was okay. I would say like the adrenaline rush is particularly when I'm startled by news or by something that I wasn't expecting, be it at work, with family. I do get this thing where like my entire neck starts to itch. So I feel like it's like my blood just pumping through my body. Like, it sometimes translates into like digestive issues because that's just the way that my body reacts. And I know automatically, like if I'm at work or it's something, if I do get a headache, I think it's because I'm overthinking it. So I think that's how I can like translate what I'm feeling to possibly physical reactions. And I already know it. It's like a particular side of my head. I'm like, okay, I need to kind of just like breathe and let it not get to me. But the adrenaline rush, it's something I just can't control. It's just the physical reaction that I get on something, or, you know, like when someone scares me, I get this feeling like, whoo, it goes up to my neck and like into my head. It's like fizzle.
Yeah. It's a powerful thing, isn't it? I mean, that's the chemical that's encouraging you to run away from the woolly mammoth. We don't have any woolly mammoths anymore, but still
the
there.
fight or flight reaction.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it can be very powerful. And from what I'm hearing you say, you can join those up quite well. You can go, okay, that's an adrenaline rush. I know what that is, and that means that, you know, you've got that joined up thinking, and maybe that's to do with your training as well. So that's really, really great of you to share. Thank you that you actually know yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. You know, this is the wisdom that we get severed from. So anybody else, has anything else?
Yeah, so Sally is saying that she really feels into it. She sits with it, and then she notices memories.
Lovely.
And Erin says,
can I just comment on that? Because being able to track it back to something that's happened in the past is a really great way of doing it. That's the wisdom you've already got. So it's like, okay, so you're noticing the feeling and then referencing it with another experience in your life. That's really valuable, because then you can surface it.
Yeah. And then Erin says journaling, writing poetry.
Lovely. Lovely. Find the words.
And Marilena says, taking a quiet moment with deep breathing helps me to feel into the sensations of my body.
Lovely. Absolutely lovely. So actually being with yourself instead of running away from it. Wonderful.
Yeah. And in fact, that's very similar to what I've written, which is breathing, I close my eyes, or I start walking with my eyes open.
Nice touch at the end. Yeah. Absolutely. You're doing all the exact things that you need to do, because if we ignore it, it causes us problems and we eventually get ill. Our bodies just start to shout louder and louder. But you know, you're coming with these things. So it depends if you're a kinesthetic learner or an introvert or an extrovert. We all have different ways. But you know, I think you all or some of you might have done the journaling workshops. So actually writing into it is definitely the way. Walking is brilliant for me. It just means it all shifts, because emotion is energy in motion. That's all it means. And if we can move with it, then it moves through us. That's really useful. Breathing, being curious, meditating, swimming, running. So it's about going, okay, it's uncomfortable. I'm not going to try and make it go away, but here are some ways that I can actually surface it into language. Because once we've surfaced it into language, then we can do something with it. We can actually get our needs met. And that's kind of helpful. Yeah, instead of just making it go away. So mobilization, the next one. This is a space which sounds like doing, but this is actually a space of not doing. This is the stage before we go right into action and the masculine. That's the doing. So mobilization is knowing what the words are and beginning to identify what we need. So this is a real crucible. The longer you can spend in mobilization, the better, because you're asking what, why, who, where, why are we doing it? What do we need? What would happen if we did that? This is a place where you involve all your stakeholders and all the perspectives. And the longer you can spend in there, then the wiser the decisions are that you make, because they've got more information in there. And we have encouraged just to go straight to the masculine. Oh, well, there's something that's a bit uncomfortable here, and I'll go straight to the masculine to fix it. And actually, we're skipping these two bits. This is so valuable. You've got the words from here, and you take that into mobilization. So yeah, this is the not doing. Stay there, stick with it, explore more. You know, and I know time is really, you know, there are time constraints, but equally, the more perspectives you can have, the more valuable it is. So now, Sheila, I'm going to invite you into this space. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
There's a little tale that we would like to share with you here, and this is two women standing in their divine feminine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stop the screen share, and I'm going to invite you and me to have this conversation. So I'm going to put us on gallery. I wonder if people can go on silent, mute, and then it will be me and Sheila having a conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, everyone's on mute.
Lovely. So why is everybody showing up then? Gallery. Let's just do speaker. I don't know how to do that. I'm going to have a conversation with you, Sheila. Is that all right? It's all right having your face on there. So we had an experience a month ago where I was booked in as a speaker. You kindly offered me an opportunity as a speaker, and beautifully, I didn't show up in the time and the place where I was expected to be. I was tied up somewhere. We don't even need to go where I was. However, you and I have navigated this journey really beautifully. So I'd just like to honour us both in that, because it's been extraordinary. So I'm interested to know, going back to that sensations place in the cycle, you know, you were left holding space with a whole bunch of women for 2 hours with no speaker. And I'm interested to know what you were experiencing in your body, because this is the wisdom, and this enabled us to really navigate this really well.
Okay. So at the beginning, I felt at the beginning, I felt a lot of confusion. So there was confusion. Then it kind of transmuted into embarrassment, and then a little bit of panic, shortness of breath, and just a little bit of panic, and then it turned into anger. And it stayed in anger.
Absolutely.
Until we spoke. Yeah.
No, I really hear that, and in public, I'd like to say I'm ever so sorry I put you in that position, but it's really good to hear how you felt, because it's powerful, isn't it? It's a really powerful experience that we had. You know, from my side of things, I was totally unaware because of circumstances that this is what Sheila was experiencing, and then I got to the end of the situation that I was in, and there goes the phone, multiple messages, where are you? And I had quite a response too. So in my body, there was a moment where everything literally just stopped. It was an extraordinary experience. I became really detached, because the reality didn't match up with my understanding of where I should be. It was pure panic. And my breath was held, and my heart stopped, and my stomach dropped, and I went into panic, and my eyes were widened. I think I was ready to fight. Conflict began to take place in my body, and I literally felt quite sick with it, really. And then there became this unstoppable cascade of realization of my situation, and my insides dissolved. It was just an extraordinary experience. And then I was really paralyzed. I didn't know what to do, because there were 10 minutes till the end of this meeting. I didn't really want to show up at the end of the meeting and go, I'm really sorry. So I didn't know whether to show up or hang on and wait for you. It was a really, really unpleasant experience. So I'm sorry I put both of us through that, not by design, but we learned a lot through it. So coming back to Sheila and you, and what words became with that. So confusion, anger, concern, anger, that was the process for you. Anything else that came through that?
A little bit of panic, a little bit of embarrassment.
Yeah, because you've invited me and I'm not there. Beautiful. So for me, I had a battle of words, and emotions began to take place in me. I took myself on a roller coaster of emotions that I could begin to name. There There was fear that I'd let you down and all you women who'd showed up to be with me. There was deep disappointment that I'd missed the opportunity. I literally felt I'd given my golden ticket away. There was anger because I'd worked hard to get this speaking opportunity up and running. There was self-justification. Now, this entertains me from this point, but at the time it wasn't. I had internal conversations with you, Sheila, you weren't there, about how I'd come to disappoint you and everybody here. I was in an argument with you who wasn't there. Fear that I had to make this right somehow, and then literally fight or flight. And there was a little moment where I thought maybe I could just change my name and leave the country, because it felt like I made such a mess of it. And that was awful. That was just absolutely awful. So then into mobilization, into that bit before action. I've written here some of what we did. Are you happy that I share that, Sheila? Because it just feels really beautiful. All right. So what did we do? So I summoned all my courage and I showed up to volunteer my apologies to you. And that was one of the hardest calls I've had to make, I think. But brilliantly, you were willing to hear me and had enough courage to share that you felt angry with me. But you did it in the way, not ignoring you were angry and not dumping your anger on me, but actually just naming it, which was just brilliant. It was adult. I could hear and empathize with that. I remember saying to you, yeah, I would feel really angry if somebody had done that too. I really felt it. So the way that you expressed it meant that I could empathize with you, because if anybody had done that to me, I'd have been absolutely furious. So in owning your emotional response, you gave me the space and thus the opportunity to make my amends, and we could explore what we could do to make it better in this difficult situation. And then even better, your generosity was amazing. You were generous enough to call a meeting for us a few days later so that we could collaborate and make this content even better, and even better for you women who were attending. Now I see this as two women absolutely standing in their divine feminine, with courage, with respect, with honesty, with generosity, and with collaboration. Had either of us skipped a step in that, the emotional charge would have remained within us. And thus this was both of us risking showing up in our sovereign selves and navigating it together, not only to right or wrong, but to make it better. So I think we were examples of excellence. We could have skipped all of it and never spoken again. Instead, we navigated all of this together. We have a closer bond than ever. And we thought maybe we deserve to share this with you and celebrate, actually, because it's been quite a journey. So thank you, Sheila. Honestly, that rawness and that ability for each of us to keep stepping forward and moving into the space has been brilliant. So thank you.
Thank you. But I'd also like to thank Marilena and Chitra, because as organizers of the WIN, and their generosity and also doing this again. So absolutely. They deserve it as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, both of you. I'm absolutely made up. It was a situation that couldn't be avoided. However, the fact that I got invited back, in my life, there aren't any second chances. So actually to be invited back by all of you is extraordinary. So thank you. So I'm now going to share my slides again. Hold on, I've lost them. What have I done with them? No. I think I just closed my slide. Bear with me.
Rebecca, sorry, I have a question for you.
Do go for it. Yeah.
The example you just told us, you just shared, it's an example of a situation in which you have a certain relationship, let's say, with Sheila, that allows you to share what you are feeling and to vocalize your emotions, your sensations, but yes. This is not always the case. So many times we keep it inside and then just
absolutely.
So absolutely. What are those situations?
Yes, absolutely. And Sheila and I were very lucky that we could be really honest with each other and we navigated it together. But as you say, otherwise you're left sitting on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now share a technique with you, which can be used, I think, in all situations. All right. So I understand that, in our organizations and in our lives and in our work, particularly, these conversations can't take place in this raw form, and then we're left with it. So what do we do in that case? So the technique I'd like to bring to you is nonviolent communication. You may have heard of it, you may have not. It's by a guy called Rosenberg, and it's genius. All right. He's written a book, but you don't need the whole book, but it's there if you want to reference it. So this is a really interesting one. There are 4 stages to it. So first of all right, I'll tell you what I'll do. First of all, I go into feelings. When I've had some kind of letdown, betrayal, I'm a very feelings person. I go right into it. I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm this, I'm the other. And actually what I have learned through this process is that I need to step away. I need to step away and not have that conversation in the moment, and I need to go through this process. So the observations, this is a way of simply taking a step back, whoever has let you down or whatever situation you're in, to say, I just need to take some time to resolve this. Take your 24 hours or your 72. It's a really sensible thing to do. So your observations are literally describing physically what's happened. So you're not in your feelings, you're literally just talking about what's happened in front of you and who's done what. Then your feelings, you go into, how you feel about that. So these are the internal feelings. They're not how you should feel about it. It's actually what your emotional response is. And from that, you can begin to identify what your needs are. So all of this is done on your own. This is in a reflective space. And you can begin to say, well, okay, when that happened, I felt, and what I need is to ameliorate it. What I've also learned about these needs is the need doesn't always need to be met by the person who betrayed me, let me down, or is being tricky. Sometimes I need to make my own needs. So there's 2 sets of needs. You might need something from the person that you're having difficulty with, but also there's a place for meeting our own needs. So sometimes I need compassion, sometimes I need self-care, sometimes I need tenderness. I can't expect that from somebody out there who's made a mess. So there's 2 stages, and I can't expect all of that from somebody else. And then once you're meeting your own needs, then you can go into requesting what you need from the person who's betrayed you, let you down in work and in life. And you can then, from a compassionate, empathic, but also calm place, because you've worked your way through it, begin to request what you need. You can take them through this process if you like. You can say, this happened, this is how I felt, this is what I need, and you can request, would it be possible that I haven't? Would it be possible that we do it differently? Would it be possible that we address it like this? And then we can come across as adult instead of right in the emotions and full of feelings about the whole thing. Sometimes our requests are not going to be met. Sometimes we're going to get a no. Sometimes we're working for an organization that doesn't understand what we're talking about. But when we know why we need what we need, we can then amend those requests so that it becomes specific to the culture that we're in. How does that land with you? Was that Laura who brought that to me? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, it was me. Yeah, I would have to see how this last point you just said. So if how you phrase your need, or how you, let's say, is your need that is gonna influence your request, and
Yes.
you can customize your request based on the organization culture, let's say.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've learned is that we have to translate for people. So we need to translate what benefit it will be to them if they meet our needs, and using sector specific language, you know who you work for, so using language that's going to land with the person that you're communicating with. So there's a lot about the mirroring the body language, but if you can sell it as a benefit rather than a request, that there's a benefit in them doing this for you or meeting your request, then you've got a sales pitch, and you've got a better chance of getting it met. Yeah.
So Erin has raised her hand. Erin, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And Rebecca, thank you so much for spending this time with us and the sharing and this rich opportunity. I was wondering, like, in terms of this slide, for example, if it's not too personal, if you might be able to tell us more about, like, you said that you went through burnout. I know some other folks on the call also mentioned, and maybe like a concrete example, even if it's not your story, but how you actually applied this to burnout, like what it might look like, what you actually did or said, or and how you started to recover, if that's possible. Thanks.
I can maybe insert a small bit in there. That's not to do with this. I mean, I tell you what, this process here is about how you can push back. So that attends to burnout, if that makes sense. So it's how you push back and when something's gone wrong, and it means that you don't have to expend that whole energy. I think if I were to tell I know what I'll do. What I will do as far as burnout's concerned is I will share an article that I wrote about my burnout last year. Some of it will come into the next sections that we're dealing with, but also it will come in as I can share that article with you. Would you be able to do that, Sheila?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
I think you will recognize it. So, there probably isn't time enough to go right into that burnout journey right now, but I'm going to give you some tools which can help in the next sections. But yeah, there's an article that I've written all about it. But what I do see in this pandemic, I see people so burned out they can't even open their emails, and this is when they run businesses that they love. They want to jack it all in. They literally can't deal with any more info, even though they've got business coming their way. They can't book it in because they can't cope with any more. So it's literally a shutdown. But there are all sorts of varieties of burnout. So yeah, it can be quite severe, or it can be.
Rebecca, so Sally has her hand up. So Sally.
Hello.
Yeah. Sorry, just one question before we go off of this subject of the nonviolent communication. So you guys have given a beautiful example of when two parties are willing to dialogue and meet each other halfway. But I'm just really dealing with a very difficult situation where I think I've done all the nonviolent communication, but they're not meeting. They're just so closed and in such a space of anger that they can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not meeting me halfway, which just leaves me feeling awful. So like words of wisdom on that in a nutshell, like.
Yeah, it's very tricky when people won't meet you halfway. And the conclusion I'm coming to is that most of the business world probably isn't in adult. What I might suggest, Sally, is if you book yourself in, we could have a little bit of time on it because it'll be bespoke to this situation and you and I can tease it out. Would that help?
Yeah, how do I book myself in? I mean, are we talking about tonight or another private session or what?
Yeah, no, just the diary. Sheila will make sure that the Calendly link gets to you, and I've got diary slots open for the next few weeks. So, but it won't be this evening, but we can do it in the next few days. How's that? And then we can work out, we can tease out how we can do that, because I think each situation is bespoke when people are on strike and won't meet you halfway. Is that okay?
That would be lovely. I'd appreciate that.
All right, lovely. Well, I should look forward to seeing you in that case.
Okay.
And we can certainly sort it out, because I think that, yeah, it's just really hard. I just think the level of emotional literacy in business and organisations is so low, and we deserve the support in order to navigate it. Yeah, I'm sorry that you're going through it. So I'm just going to go back to this little model for now. So here's the masculine, all right? Here's what we've been doing for 700 years, if not 2,000 years, if not 10,000 years, actually, since the agrarian revolution. It's gradually crept in. But I'd just like you to notice that in this action phase, it's only 12.5 of this whole cycle. It's 12.5%, and we spent all that time in there. And then we wonder why we're all really tired. So I'm going to move swiftly on from that. We do enough of that. Contact. So contact is this place where this is the first bit of pleasure. So the need is met. We've drunk of the glass of water, if we're going to use that as an example. We were thirsty down here. We've identified that's what it was. We worked out how to get the water, and then we've gone into action, got the water. Contact is, okay, we've had a drink and we feel better. There's something around making sure that we're doing this well. So is it finished? Was it done well enough? Is there anything else, and do I need more? So those are the questions that you might need to ask yourself to make sure that you're really doing that completion, that contact bit well. Then we go into, all of you, into resolution. So resolution here, and what resolution means, this is the celebration and reward. So this is, not only have we got the reward from actually getting our need met, but we'll also then get to celebrate and give ourselves reward for having done the work. And this is more nourishment. This is a bit that we skip. We just spend our time in here. And then completion. This is reflection. So these are the questions around what did we do well, what we could do differently, what are we definitely not going to repeat. And this stops us going through this whole cycle of the insanity of doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different outcome. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I know I do it repeatedly. And if I actually stop and reflect and go, I'm going to do it differently, then I do get a different outcome. And then the last bit is withdrawal. So this is letting go of the cycle that we've been through. And this is grief and this is gratitude. And it's really important to do that, because otherwise it leaks right into here. And now I'm going to take you into the fertile void. Now, what's in the fertile void? The fertile void is quite often manifest as sleep, quite often manifest as meditation, quite often manifest as it's rest, is what fertile void is. But in the fertile void are all the years of all our life experiences, and they are our wisdom. So I don't know about you, but I've certainly taken some wrong turns in my time. I got stuck in some cul-de-sacs. I've been down some streets that weren't mine. I've been down some amazing, glorious streets. But all those experiences get laid down in the fertile void. And that means for me, I've got nearly 5 decades worth of experience to draw on. And yet the bonkersness is that if I have a question, I Google it first. No. What we need to be doing is turning in and asking ourselves the questions. So I'm just flagging that up, that you have so much wisdom inside you already from all the years that you've lived. Maybe ask yourself the question first. All right. Thank you. So I've got a quote I'd like to read you. And I think this might resonate. I'm going to move this again. Okay. So the great difficulty in organisations is the compulsive and incessant drive to achieve and deliver more. This leads to the short-circuiting of the cycle we've just seen, with people going from action straight through the cycle across to awareness or mobilisation without any sense of contact, completion, withdrawal, or the fertile void. Senior leaders caught on this hamster wheel often report a sense of exhaustion and despair. They have no sense of making progress. So what we're doing is we're going, oh, awareness, do it, awareness, do it. And we're not picking up any of this nourishment along the way, and we're not accessing this. Does that sound familiar to anybody in the room?
Yes, we have a couple of comments in the chat.
Yeah.
Superb reflection, says Sonia. Afshan says, here, we have wisdom within us. And so
We do.
I think it is resonating.
This is really good. All right. So I think these bits that we're shortcutting, they are exactly the divine feminine that we need to pick up. And your organizations will be working like that. The world is working like this. And this means that we're not picking up the nourishment. It means that you are exhausted, your organization is exhausted, people are worn out, and the planet is suffering as well. So I do feel like it's time to rebalance this stuff. So we're getting a little bit time short. Where are we, Sheila? What's the best thing to do with this?
So we have 10 minutes or 11 minutes. How much longer do you have, or do you need? Because if it's a little bit longer, we can ask for consent, and if anybody can stay a little bit longer, we can certainly manage that.
Okay.
I don't know. Marilena, what are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yes, we can continue a little bit, and if anyone has to leave, maybe you can let us know in the chat.
Yes.
And then we can adjust accordingly.
That's lovely. Thank you very much for that freedom to do that. Now, what I'm going to do in that case is there's a couple of really lovely meditations I'd like to take you through at the end. And that might sound woo, but it'll change your brain chemistry. So I want to make sure that we get those done. All right. What I would also like to do is particularly go to that celebrating failure bit, because I think it's really pertinent culturally, right? What I'm going to do in that case is I'm going to really quickly touch on resolution and satisfaction. And I'm actually going to set another homework inquiry. So again, I'd like you to take your pen and paper, and I would like you to set yourself a homework inquiry. I'd like you to write yourself a list of 10 rewards when you have done really well. And they'll be bespoke to you. And again, they might be lavish, or they might be minuscule, but if they're the right rewards and they're bespoke to you, then they will be really, really potent. So what I'd like...
Rebecca, sorry, just one clarification. Is it 10 rewards that we have given to ourselves in the past, or that we would like to give ourselves, or what?
You can have all of them. You know, if you want to do 500 rewards, past, present, future, there might be some new work for you. There might be some new ones. All right. So have a play with it. What I'm trying to get you to establish is that you have a list, a go-to list So you don't even have to think what your rewards might be. You've got, 10, 20 things to choose from. So when you know you've done something wrong, your default setting is to go and choose a reward and to reward yourself, because this is your nourishment. All right. So you get the reward of having done the thing well. That's great. You completed well, but then you actively reward yourself as well. Does that make sense? And I'm also noticing two things about sort of rewards and, and celebrations is that, we are told we can celebrate and reward ourselves in certain ways. So, we get to celebrate birthdays and births and marriages, and we get to celebrate public holidays. But, when do we celebrate ourselves? This is sovereignty, and when do we reward ourselves for having done something well? We've become very externally referenced. We're waiting for somebody to give us a pat on the head. And actually, we need to be doing it for ourselves. And if we know how we're going to do it, and again, there might be a little bit of accountability between people, in this room, some of you know each other. If we know how we're going to do it, then people can hold you accountable for doing it. And that means that you're fueled for the next cycle. Okay. So yes, looking at the cycle, we should be rewarding ourselves hourly, but do we? We should be rewarding ourselves every day. We're going through these cycles of learning all the time, but we're not rewarding ourselves. So, yeah, I just wanted to introduce that as a homework, and if you want to feed back to me later, that would be really good. You'll know where to find me. So, and I'm just noticing also, what do we do when we're really exhausted? There's your rewards. What do we do when we're really exhausted? We turn to external stimulants. How many espressos get drunk during a major project? How many convenience foods and how much refined sugar fuels a deadline? I'd like you to remember the last time you fell in love. We've all done it. Remember how little sleep you needed, how you functioned with eating so little, how it was like you could live on air, so you knew what, what that was. And that's because you were open to the energy of the universe. And that energy is there all the time. So energy is always there, like the sun, it's always there, even when the planet turns away from the night. So for the night, what we've been taught is to close off from it. So these are ways of opening yourself up again, so you can gain all the energy that you need. If you're rewarding yourself, your celebrations, these are your birthright. And they are your nourishment for all the efforts you will put in from doing all that cycle, from getting from sensation right through to completion and all the way around. This is your fuel. So then you'll get nourishment from gifting yourself the reward for the achievement of that. So this means you get through that whole cycle, squeezing all the nourishment out of it. And this means you bring in the next cycle, feeling of learning strong, nourished, energized for the next round. And this means you can make wise decisions, but you can take care of yourself wisely as you keep learning. And this is how we step out of the endless deliver model that depletes us more each time we fail to complete that cycle. Okay, so are we ready for celebrating failure? So, would you like to know why celebrating failure is your greatest asset? Failure is your greatest asset because it's where your deepest learning takes place. We learn best when we've fallen over, gotten bruised, landed on our knees, made a mess of ourselves, and that's when we have the motivation to change. And this is alchemical. So if you too were taught that failure was full of shame or humiliation or embarrassment, now is the time to set those beliefs aside and to write a new story for yourself. Who told you that failure had no value or was shameful? Who took your power away? And are you ready to take it back? Have I ever failed? Hell yeah, I've taken myself near death and in failure. Would you like a recent example of mine? Okay, I hate scheduling. I just hate scheduling. And my greatest fear is that I will book 2 clients at the same time, and then I'll look stupid and I'll embarrassed and it will all go horribly wrong, and then I will look unprofessional. So a couple of months ago, guess what happened? I opened the door to my client. This is a one-to-one session, and there are 2 beautiful clients looking at me on the doorstep. And yes, I did want to run away. I really did want to run away. And they looked at each other, and one of them with great grace went, I'll contact you later. She could see what would happen. There are 3 of us for a one-to-one session. I'll contact you later, and we'll arrange that. So she got a free session for that. I was absolutely delighted. And that enabled me to focus on the client that came into the room. And we did some good work. But there were real lessons in this. There were gifts in it, because firstly, I realized I never wanted that to happen again. So I got myself a diary system where I cannot double book. So that's that in place. But also I looked at the fact that I'm running 2 businesses simultaneously, and I began to look at all the tasks that I really, really don't like doing. And I hired myself the most beautiful VA who's completely on board, and now she does them. And without that failure, I would still be sending out my own Zoom links and still trying to run an Instagram account, which baffles me, all on my own. So this is the benefit of failure, is that this is where we get to learn. And, you know, no progress is ever made unless we take risks, all right? So I would like to take you, actually, do I have your consent? I'm going to do that. I'd like to mess with your mind a little. Can I take you to a place where you can reclaim some of your power around this? Yeah. I'm seeing nods, people that I can see. Yeah, I'm seeing thumbs up. That's awesome. So this is the alchemy. This is really alchemical work. What I'd like you all to do now is I'd like you to sit back in your seats, and I would like you to close your eyes, and I'm going to take you on a little guided visualization so that you can reclaim some things that have happened for you and see the value of them when maybe it didn't feel like value at the time. All right. So close your eyes. Feel the chair beneath you rising up to support you. Take a deep breath in through your nose, right into your diaphragm, and exhale it through your mouth. Sigh it out. Do that again. In through your nose, into your diaphragm, and sigh it out through your mouth, keeping your eyes closed. Then breathe normally. And now I'd like to ask you to do something. Knowing that you're held by the chair and everything that's holding up the chair beneath you, and that you are safe. So take yourself back to a point earlier in your leadership journey. Take yourself back to a time that you made a mistake, a time where you made an absolute mess of something with your new team or your new role. You might have wanted to run away or disappear. So you're safe. Breathe into that. Remember how it felt. What are the sensations in your body? This is you being really courageous. Now, consider these questions, keeping your eyes closed. So what did you do in that moment? It's all gone horribly wrong. It's all gone horribly wrong. It feels really uncomfortable. Did you run away? Did you actually dissolve and die? Or did you, I guess not actually, you're all still here. Or did you dive back in and problem solve? Did you seek the guidance that you needed? And did you put the situation as right as it could be? I bet you did. Bet you really showed up and did that. So, if you'd like to join me in the room, gently open your eyes. I'd now like you to write down 3 things that you learned from that probably fairly uncomfortable experience. Yeah, what did you discover that you wanted to do differently? And now, I'm interested to know if you can see how that has fed, that experience and those learnings has fed the professional woman that you are today. Yeah. So can I have a thumbs up in the chat box when you're ready, if you've got something? If you can see that it's fed the person that you are today. How are we doing? Can you see in the chat box, Sheila, if any thumbs up?
No thumbs up
No thumbs up
at the moment.
So
Anybody would like to write in the chat?
is this resonating? Do I need to bring something more to it? How are you doing? Or have I plunged you all back into a place of shame from terrible experiences in the past? Let me know where you're at.
So Hedda is saying, thank you for this exercise, gave lots of good insights.
Oh, lovely. Okay, so we've got some things coming out. That's really, really good. Because you know, this is your alchemy. This is where your gold lies. You know, the experiences we put ourselves through when we're learning something new are not easy. They're discomforting. We make mistakes. We've been taught that that's wrong. But actually, if we stick with the place that this is just wrong and we're bad people because we made a mistake, then we're in all sorts of trouble. We fail to take the lesson from it. And we fail to grow as human beings. So if you can acknowledge the progress that you've made since that time when it went horribly wrong and feel that it's, you know, become the woman that you are, that's your gold. So I'd like to give you 2 questions to use with this.
Sorry, Rebecca, Marilena has her hands up. I think she'd like to share.
Oh, please do, Marilena.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if time permits, otherwise it doesn't matter. It was to respond to your question and the homework that we just did.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to a situation where I made a mistake, not willingly, clearly. And I was reprimanded by my supervisor for having done the thing that I did. And I was obviously very surprised because I would not have thought that that was such a big deal. But then I actually am very proud because what you described earlier about leaving the emotions out and just thinking about what happened and focusing, okay, I made a mistake. I need to fix this. How can I fix it? So with my supervisor, I said, okay, I'm sorry, you know, I didn't know, it wasn't intentional. How can I fix this? And so we were at because for her, it was very difficult to tell me that I had made a mistake, no? And so maybe she was expecting a reaction of fear or anger or some sort of emotional reaction. Instead, I kept very cool and focused on what I needed to do to fix that problem.
Oh, well done.
And then I fixed it. And after some time, in a feedback session, because we have that on a regular basis where you have to provide feedback on your performance, etc., she actually pointed that out as one of my strengths. She said, you know, Marilena, the way you reacted to me telling you that you had made a mistake and thinking about it in a propositive way. And she said that it was impressive. And so for me, I now feel much more in a position to say, okay, well, if I make a mistake, like you said, I will not die. No, nobody else dies. Luckily, I'm not a surgeon. So, so it felt really good afterwards. And now that you made this exercise to go back to that feeling and to think about it, no, through it, it was interesting. So basically, it taught me that I can handle anything by looking at it objectively and leaving emotions out.
That's really beautiful. You I couldn't have placed you better. Thank you for bringing that in. And you know, then you can claim that as your power. You can do anything. That's extraordinary, you know, and you can cope with anything. You know, by the time we reach sort of, you know, erring towards midlife, we've got enough experience where we really can bring this, can't we? And if you can see that really clearly, that's fantastic. Thank you. How amazing you are. And maybe there are two questions which might be useful here. So one of the things that I've learned about dealing with failure, there quite often is a place where I'm like a victim place. It's a hard thing to say, but where I'm wondering why this has happened to me. But the sooner we can move out of that into what is this showing me, then we get into a constructive place. And then we're not traumatizing ourselves anymore. So there's a last little meditation I'd like to take you through. Are you happy with that? So, sitting back in your chairs again. Close your eyes and feel the chair beneath rising up to support you. And do those 2 deep breaths. So in through your nose, exhale it through your mouth. In through your nose, exhale through your mouth. So keeping your eyes closed, breathe normally. And then take yourself back to a point earlier in your life. Take yourself back to a time when you did really well. You can be any age, it can be any achievement. It needs to be an achievement that you felt good about, something that you knew you had done well. Perhaps even an achievement that others affirmed you for, but one that you knew you'd done well. So now breathe into that one. Take yourself back to that space and breathe into the sensations of success right through your body. Breathe them from your heart, down your shoulders, right down your arms to your fingertips. Breathe those sensations of success from your heart, down your torso, hips, into your pelvis, down your legs, right to your toes. Feeling that success, and then bringing your attention to your heart once again. And just begin to notice how you feel now. Breathe that in and hold on to that feeling. Expand it through your body. Now, if you'd like to join me back in the room. Now, this is how you can use your past to fuel your pleasure in the present. When you are really, really, really tired, you can change your brain chemistry by doing nothing. Just using your brain. You can snug up on the sofa under a blanket, and you can take yourself to a place of pleasure, which can then inform your pleasurable present. Look what you can do without actioning anything at all. You are in control of your pleasure, your nourishment, and thus your energy levels. Does anybody want to say anything about how that was for them?
Shan, you go ahead.
So I have a very mixed reaction, to be honest. It's not pure pleasure.
Okay.
It's a combination of adrenaline and a sense of, oh my goodness, how am I going to do that again?
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. So how do we repeat that success?
Yeah, and I have to say that the first 3 things I thought of were all professional, and then the last thing, for some reason, that I thought I'd think about something personal was something very personal, but there was a sense of exhaustion at the end of those successes.
Yep, that's really interesting.
And so that was unexpected.
How interesting, and well done for being courageous enough to take yourself there and also to share that with us. We will have different responses, and I guess this is an exercise to play with. This is an exercise, this is an exercise where you can begin to find your happy place, and there might be some that do take you to adrenaline and that I've got to do it again, and there might be some that do take you to places of, oh, that was exhausting. So it's about, refining it and choosing 2 or 3, which will take you to that place of completion where, yeah, you did really well, and that's going to nourish your brain now, and then that feeds your body. How does that help? A little bit of experimentation so that you've got 2 or 3 to draw on. Yeah.
Yeah, in my case, sorry, just to respond, in my case, I guess I have to think of something that led to peaceful rest after that instead of the next adrenaline rush.
And, this is the deliver that I'm bringing into this space that we're all programmed to do, isn't it? Oh, I've had a success and now I've got to top it. And actually, so working in a bespoke way for each of you to find one which means that actually it is going to give you that respite. You'll have to play with it a little bit, and because otherwise, if it's just going to set that adrenaline rush off, then it's counterproductive. So yeah, really good spot. Well done. I forget that we're in this deliver, and we can just stimulate it all again. So have a play with it. Have a play with ones that work for you, because if you can find some that you can choose from, then again, you've got a list of them and they're bespoke and they're waiting for you when you're really exhausted. And instead of turning to the caffeine, you can draw on that instead. Does that help?
Not yet, but I'll think about it, and I'm sure it will.
Yeah, have a play with it, and I know time's short, but have a play with it, because it's then in your toolbox and you can draw on it. Okay. So we have worked today with pleasure and consent. You've got homework around the power of celebration and rewards and the benefits of failure. And a little bit of brain chemistry at the end. So I have a request of you at the end of this is that you're rigorous with yourself, that you apply aggressive self-care and you do that religiously, that you keep your pleasure list handy and you use them religiously, and that you celebrate your wins and you reward yourself. You don't just make contact and then go around to the next one, and you do that religiously. That you celebrate your failures, quit shaming yourself and take the lessons instead. And that you find your ways of visioning pleasure, success and celebration so you can feed and nourish yourself without even doing anything. So I'd like you to do those really regularly once you've got those sorted out. So my question at the end of this session, and this isn't one that you need to answer now, this is one I'd like you to take away and reflect on. If we think of the masculine as the doing, and we think of the feminine as the being, as the rule, it's much more being and receptive. As a result of what we have talked through today and all the contributions that have beautifully been made, what is it that you will do or be different as a result of this session? Take it away and just as a little homework, and I'd be really interested to know what it is. Book yourself in on the Calendly slot, give some feedback, and just let it percolate. Give yourself time to work out what's going to be different from you as a result of exploring these places. I think that's me done. See, Calendly links on there, so I will send this over to you, Sheila, and maybe that can go to Marilena. That would be really helpful if that could go out. That would be really useful, thank you. And I will also send that article to you, Sheila, so that can go out as well. So we're only a quarter of an hour late. Thank you very much for sticking with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rebecca. If there's any other questions or comments before we close this session, speak now.
Forever hold your peace.
Or I will then give it to Marilena to say the last few words. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You've been just lovely to work with. So thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, and thank you, Rebecca. I think it was very inspiring, and also whenever you start thinking about yourself and digging deeper and doing that work inside yourself, that is always interesting, because you discover things that you were not thinking about, and you have new perspectives and new energy or lack of energy, and then that also teaches us something. And so it's definitely very interesting. And also the difference between the approaches between the feminine and the masculine, of the doing and trying to tap more into the feminine of thinking. And so very interesting. Thank you so much. I would like to give a little bit of a heads up of what's next for our members, because we do have a few very interesting other interesting events coming up. And Laura, I don't know if you would like to very briefly mention the next event that Laura, you will be facilitating, please.
Sure. So on the 3rd of March, we are organizing another session that is actually gonna be not on, it's more or less on self-development, but basically we will start with a colleague that is working on women, peace and security. And she has been accompanying through mentoring women that are engaged in peace negotiations. And so she will give us some tips on what the work she does and how mentoring helps women to develop their power as negotiators. And then we will reflect on how this can apply on everyday life. So yes, we will start from the international context, from contexts that are very different from our daily lives, probably because are, let's say, conflict states or post-conflict situation. And then we will see how the learning of mentoring and women networking can be applied to all of us and what we do every day. This is in a nutshell.
Thank you very much, Laura. We're looking forward to this event with your friend. And we are also going to celebrate March, obviously, is the month of women's empowerment, discussions around women, the International Women's Day. And so we will have our Women's Informal Network event on the 9th of March at 5 o'clock. On talking about anti-bias and anti-discrimination with two of our authors of the You Matter book, How Women Reclaiming Their Power Are Changing the World, Wadzanai Garve and Veronique Sandlus, will share some experiences that are featured in the book, in their chapters. And we will also have Ms. Katie Megan, who's the legal counsel of IFAD, and she will share some legal actions that we can take against bias and discrimination. So very concretely, from the lived bias and discrimination to what can be actually done. And that will kick off the series of events that we will hold during 2022 about different topics that are featured in the You Matter book. And so we will always invite a few authors and discuss a topic and invite an expert and have roundtable discussions. So if you would like to participate in that event on the 9th of March, I would suggest to read the two chapters of Wadzi and of Veronique, so that you can also participate in the discussion and you know a little bit more where they're coming from when they are sharing their experiences. Okay, and with this, I would like to thank you, Rebecca, for having been able to, yes, Sheila, you have the book. Exactly. I also have it here, yeah. Thank you for rescheduling and for making yourself available again. And it's a pity we had so many more people last time. But anyway, this has been recorded, so it will be made available to our members. And also you will make available the presentation. So if anyone wants to dig deeper and have a conversation with you one-on-one, this will be possible. So thank you all for your participation and for your inputs and for sharing also some of the intimate thoughts and experiences. That is what makes our network reach you. So thank you so much for being here. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.